to episode 2 of Canada Dreams, the immigration podcast. If you are looking to immigrate to Canada, whether you're looking to get a temporary residency, permanent residency, this podcast is for you. This podcast is brought to you by Treadstone Law. My name is Umar. I'm your host. I am an immigration lawyer at Treadstone Law. So let me just tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be covering, what the topics that we'll be covering over the weeks in this podcast. It's relatively new. We're trying to make a podcast that is practical, that provides you advice that is useful, that is relevant, and that is timely. That's why we have weekly episodes every single Monday where we go live, we go over news that's developed over the week or news that is developing ongoing in Canadian immigration. So the topics are everything Canadian immigration. So that includes immigration pathways. Sometimes it's new pathways or developments in existing immigration pathways, whether for temporary or permanent residency. We also talk about jobs and employment from both an immigration perspective, but also from the perspective of someone that's looking to settle and get a job to live their life in Canada, not just to get permanent residency. And finally, any type of immigration news across the board. The goal here is making you informed so that you can make informed decisions across the immigration journey. So, whatever stage you're in the process, make an informed decision and in the end, have a more stress free experience and have a better experience as you navigate the immigration process. Just a little bit of background about Treadstone Law. We are a full service law firm. Among other practice areas, we do serve immigration across the board, whether it's temporary residency, permanent residency, and court appeals. We provide full service immigration services. We provide digital services and in person services at 30 offices across Canada. We also provide a ton of free content on immigration. So follow Treadstone Immigration across social media channels, particularly TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and you'll find a ton of free information to help you stay informed. Because the idea here is that while we are here to help you make submit the best application that you can, the best way for you to have a good experience, a stress-free experience, is to be informed, because when you're informed, you make better decisions. And that includes whether you're hiring someone to support you or whether you're going through that journey alone. Being informed is necessary, and it is one of the most essential things you can do in the process. And that's part of why we have this podcast where we go over free information to help you learn and stay informed. And in addition to the content we release on social media, this podcast, we also provide a lot of seminars where we teach people about different aspects of the immigration process. These are ticketed seminars. Tickets range between $200 to $500, where we have targeted, relevant, and very practical information for you to take and understand and implement in your immigration journey. Right now, we do have a promotional offer ongoing where one of our seminars, Pathways to Permanent Residency, normal tickets are $200. Right now, we are offering it for free. The link should be in the description for you to register. So without further ado, I'm going to get started otherwise on our topics. Actually, I have one more slide here I missed. So how we help, let me just tell you quickly how we help, and then I'll go into our topics for today. So we provide affordable flat rates, interest-free payment plans, a best price guarantee, and completely digital services. So you don't have to leave your home. You can get everything from the comfort of home. So if you need immigration services, contact immigration at treadstonelaw.ca to schedule your free introductory call to better understand what your next steps will be and how we can help you in the immigration process. Now, today is the week of Monday, March 18th. So there's a lot of interesting developments. Some of the stuff, some of the news I wanted to cover is related to a lot of topics that you hear in the immigration community, you could say. So amongst immigrants and professionals in the community, there are certain topics that always come up related to whether it's jobs or difficulty settling or making that transition from living somewhere else to moving to Canada. What are it's a complex process, and what are common challenges that people face. So that's kind of the crux of what I wanted to talk about today, because there's some recent news in relation to that. But I also wanted to talk about developments in the university sector, college sector, the cap that we talked about in last week's episode. There's been developments in that. And in each of the news segments that we're going to cover, I'm going to be providing practical advice for you. So, what you can do with that news, why it's relevant to you, and how you can take what information you can take and what steps you can take to help make your immigration journey easier. So, the first article here we have by the Globe and Mail. It was posted. It's the other immigration problem. Too much immigration in Canada. Let me make this bigger. And a related one is waning Canadian dream is a waning Canadian dream fueling reverse migration in Punjab. So I would this while this article is focused particularly on immigrants from Punjab, which is a province in India. The topic here, especially here within this article, is relevant to immigrants across the board. The reason you have a targeted article from the BBC as well is because India is one of the biggest sources of immigrants in Canada. It's the number one. So I would say it's not just Punjab; it's all of India. So there's a lot of reverse migration where people come here and then they decide maybe they don't want to settle and they want to move back, and for other reasons as well, which we'll go over. So the article itself is talking about there's people that Canada should want to keep here from an economic perspective, but people are leaving here. Why are they leaving? What's happening? So the entire premise is a recent study by Statistics Canada, which is a branch of the government. They use a data set where they combine data with Canada Revenue Agency, which is the tax collection and agency in the federal government as well. And they made a number of conclusions. One of the things was that they found that there was a big brain drain in Canada where you have skilled immigrants, people who had education, people who could contribute to professions that are in need and in demand. And they also include international students, were the biggest demographic that were trying to settle and then leaving shortly thereafter. Now, policy changes targeting economic integration, recognition of foreign credentials, language barriers, and factors like high taxes can enhance talent retention in Canada. So, those were the recommendations that they gave. But now here's the stat. So, more than 5% of immigrants admitted between 1982 and 2017 emigrated within 5 years of landing, meaning they left within 5 years of landing. 17.5% emigrated within 2 decades. So almost 20% immigrated within 20 years of landing. The likelihood of departure peaks within 3 to 7 years after admission. So there's a number of things happening here. So you have so they're including the two-tier process where people come in as a temporary resident and then they're looking to get permanent residency and then they leave. So maybe at times they get permanent residency and then they leave. So there's a segment of the population that does that, where that is their intention, where they're looking to get immigration. Maybe they want their children to settle in Canada and they want to go back home. So this happens sometimes where people will come here, they'll get their residency, or they'll spend part of their time in Canada and part abroad. And the residency may be designated as abroad. So that's happening and that occurs, but you still have a significant portion of the population, of the immigrant population, that leaves. Now, this is true not just of skilled labor, it's true across the board, all kinds of professions. Each profession requires some type of skill. The reason I use that term is just that's how the immigration department defines certain professions compared to others. Now, with the recommendation, the advice I would have in terms of when you're looking at this, when you're looking at the stats, it's a scary prospect, but also the fact that you're leaving a country, leaving your family, leaving everything behind, and moving to a new country. That's also a scary prospect, right? So there is risk involved and there's courage involved as well in both these circumstances. Now, knowing that there is a likelihood of failure or perhaps difficulty, that's something that everyone's aware of because there's no certainty in success. But there are certain steps you can take to ensure that you maximize your chances of success. Now, one of the things that I always urge people to do is reflect on your reason for moving. Is your reason for moving to build a new life? And if that is your main goal, and outside of that you're flexible, right? So maybe it's not because you have attachment to a certain place, a certain city, certain province. It's because you're looking to build a new life in Canada, and outside of that, there are no constraints. Then it opens you up to a world of possibilities where you can move to different provinces across Canada. You can look at the different economies, the different PR programs, the different in-demand jobs across Canada. So there are certain sectors, there's certain provinces where certain jobs are higher in demand, and there's other provinces where other jobs are higher in demand. So your skills, your profession are important in determining where you're going to settle. And that leads me to the next point. That also determines which immigration program you're going to be using to settle in Canada. So make sure you're picking the right program, the right province, and lastly, for the international students, the right school. Often what happens is you're picking a school because a consultant told you to pick it, and often enough it is because you just maybe you're looking for temporary residency to lead to PR, and you're not really looking into the other factors related to whether that school will help you in getting a job after and actually getting PR. And you may think, I won't get into a better program, or I don't have the time for a better program. You should do your research. Be informed. Do not take the advice of a education consultant who's telling you or pushing a certain institution to you. Do your research, stay informed, and look at your long-term goals. Understand your long-term goals, because where you go to school will also factor in some of the immigration programs that are open to you, because some programs require that you went to school in that province, right? So that's an important thing to do. And finally, I would say pick the right support. So pick a professional that's able to help you based on your needs. Pick a professional that's able to help you and that is able to take a customized approach, because often what happens in the industry is you have this this churn, this cycle that happens where professionals are taking people in, submitting an application, success, failure, whatever happens, fees are collected and you move on. Whereas the person, they've saved money, they've spent a lot of time thinking and contributing and trying to figure out how they're going to settle. And that rejection is a lot more meaningful to them because it makes a big difference in their lives. So it's important to not just say, okay, I want to apply for this program. That's it. Find someone who's taking a customized approach, who's looking to understand your problems and provide you a customized solution to those problems. Now, one thing I want to note is the international student issue. I'm going to get back to in one of the later articles because there's important developments there that we talked about last week as well, or actually in our next article. Let me just switch over here. Next piece of news here. So this was kind of included in the last segment, so I wanted to go over this. Canada's immigration minister calls Ontario's international student claims, quote, garbage. So some nasty words coming up, going back and forth between the federal government and the province of Ontario. And there's significant relevance to you if you're an international student, if you're looking to become an international student, or if you're looking to apply for immigration. So there are a lot of developments happening over the last few months, particularly related to the conflicting interests of the federal government and the province of Ontario. So in January, the federal government announced it would limit the number of new international students coming into the country. In Ontario, particularly, they were cutting the amount by 50%, so in half. And that's a big number. So that has significant implications, not just on you, but also on the system as a whole. So previously, in 2019, there was a tuition fee cut and freeze that was introduced by the Ford provincial government. So what that meant was that tuition for domestic students was frozen. It could not be increased every year. So what did schools do? They decided to let more international students in, because this meant that those international students who were paying sometimes 2 or 3 times the tuition of a domestic student would make up for the loss in income from the other students, from the domestic students, because you have an increase in cost, but an increase in expectations always, where we need to make sure that we're expanding programs and we need to have revenue for those programs, et cetera, et cetera. So over the years, the number of international students, for many reasons, not just this, has increased, particularly in Ontario. Now, The Ontario government accused the federal government of causing chaos with this cap. There's a number of things. The Premier Doug Ford said the Trudeau government had taken a sledgehammer to the whole system and blindsided him. Now, the reason being is now they had to figure out how to fix the issue, which was a shortfall in cash for the universities and high costs that they had accrued over time. So now they're announcing 1.3 billion in funding over 3 years. Now, some of the takeaways in this is that tuition caps do not apply to international students. So international student cap fees may go up, and when you have a cap on number of students, but they need to maintain the number of revenue, that means that they're going to increase the tuition considerably. Likely, it's not certain, but it is likely. So what should you do? What you should be doing is pick your school carefully and ensure that there's no other pathways to PR. Maybe you don't need to go to be an international student. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to pursue that, but pick the right decision. Pick carefully. You have options. Be informed. Again, I go back to we have our Pathways to PR webinar. It applies if you're applying for permanent residency or temporary residency. Actually, there's practical advice in there. Whatever program you're applying to, steps you can take yourself to ensure that you have a better experience, a lower cost, and save time in the immigration journey. Now, I don't want to take too long with this. We're at about 16 minutes, so I want to do about 3-4 more minutes and wrap this podcast up. So I wanted to go over the last article that we were going to talk about today, which is a growing problem: how to align Canada's immigration with the future economy. So this particular article is quite extensive. I'm not going to go over everything, but I wanted to focus on takeaways. So this is a report by RBC about the different changes in immigration that have occurred and that are occurring. So one of the things you'll notice here with the chart on the screen, you have nearly doubling in targets in a decade, right? So the 2026 target, 500,000. I would not be surprised if we surpass this considerably. Um, there's no date on this, but I would not be surprised if we surpass this target. But it was written in 2023. Now, some of the key takeaways is 40. The main goal of immigration programs is to meet labor shortages. So if you have a particular skill and the government's looking to meet a shortage in that skill, then they have more programs for you. So, for example, nurses, there's plenty of programs. If you're in healthcare, there's plenty of programs. So it's about finding the right program, making the right application, ensuring that your application is done in the right way. Now, one of the takeaways in the RBC article was that international students at colleges and universities are overrepresented and in business management and STEM fields, and underrepresented in skilled trades and healthcare. So skilled trades, healthcare, construction, plumbing, electrical, all of these things are strongly in demand. So if you have this experience, there are tons of opportunities for permanent residency for you. And in some places, in some provinces, there's a need for other roles as well. Whether it's some provinces have programs that include janitors and cleaning services. Other provinces have programs that include hotel management and hotel attendance, full staff at a hotel programs that are catered towards that. And then there's also programs that address. I think I mentioned construction already, and there's farm programs. Whether you're looking to start a farm or you buy a farm, there's programs for you to gain permanent residency. So there's a lot of options. It's about knowing what you want to do with your life, what your goals are, what your preferences are, and how you can align your particular circumstance and goals with the right program or programs, and doing it in the right way to ensure that you're submitting the right application so that you have the lowest cost and the shortest amount of time for success. So again, I turn you to Pathways to PR. The goal is lowest cost, shortest time for success. What are things you can do right now, step by step, to ensure success? It's a 15-minute program where we talk about what practical steps you can take in any stage of the immigration journey in any program. What steps you can take today. I strongly recommend you watch it. Whether you're applying yourself, hiring someone, hiring another firm, hiring Treadstone Law, whatever you're doing, it will be helpful for you in your immigration journey. Now, so that covers our topics for today. I just wanted to, as we conclude, just go back to how we can help you. Treadstone Law offers full service immigration, affordable flat rates, interest free payment plans, best price guarantee, and digital services. So not only are you able to make the decision comfortably that you're going to get the best price, but if cost is an issue, you can have interest-free payment plans to ensure that you're able to break it down into small pieces and it's not a burden on you and you're able to continue on and you're comfortable knowing that the work is getting done. If you're interested, contact immigration at treadstonelaw.ca for immigration services. Again, we have a ton of free resources, immigration news, immigration pathways, jobs and employment, and special immigration offers if you follow us on social media at Treadstone Immigration across social media platforms. Thank you for your time. My name is Umar. I'm your host here. You were watching the podcast, the Immigration Podcast, Canada Dreams. Have a great day.